Hey, welcome to the Road and Morale podcast. So, do you ever feel like screaming out in the office, on Zoom, or outside the school gates? For the love of God, come on, really? Then, if this is you and you're looking for an honest, fun, and frank podcast on life and business, then sit back and listen to me, Rona Morale. I'll be bringing great people on the show to talk, share, and debate their life experiences and business challenges, keeping the show unpolished, but in a fun and unique British style, with sarcasm, tenacity, or maybe a few swear words or tears. This podcast keeps it real, honest, raw, and removes the bullshit in the only way I know how, through authenticity and getting shit done. Think of it less like the Housewives of New York or Towie with the lipo and drama, and more like the house lives of the real world. I hope you'll take something away to be better informed, laugh, smile, or maybe even finally getting the confidence to shout, come on really. So enjoy. Hey Laura, how are you? Welcome to the Road and Morale podcast.
Hello, it's really nice to be here.
Oh, thanks for joining me. So for the listeners, I'd love to introduce you to Laura Willoughby, MBE, who is the co-founder of Club Soda. Laura and I first met probably this time a year ago when I was helping a client launch a zero alcohol beer, and Club Soda was just the perfect fit. So this is all around the mindful drinking movement. You yourself gave up alcohol 7 years ago, which we'll touch on.
It's over 8 now. So
Oh my God, over 8 years. And you're also the chair on the Imbibe Low and No taste for this year, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Great. And I know you have a massive passion for kind of building movements and politics as well. So Club Soda has 50,000 individual members. I know you have a great website for the listeners, so if they want to go and find out where they can go and drink mindfully, they can. And you're also the only one to do a mindful drinking festival.
I know.
Which I was privileged to go to last year. And I'll be honest, when I first thought of a festival, zero alcohol, my days in drinks were always about lots of very drunk people at trade shows, trying to minesweep as much alcohol as they could, coming in on coaches, etc. So I was really intrigued about the vibe of the festival, and I have to say it was an amazing 5 days down in Brick Lane. So if it's okay with you, Laura, I'd love to kind of go back 8 years and just tell the listeners, why did you stop drinking?
So I've always been a big drinker. I'm not sure about you, but I'm 46, so I'm the ladette generation where full equality meant drinking pints at the same speed and quantity as the boys. And I'm from a family of drinkers, so it's quite a normalized behavior for me. And so I've never been the one who didn't, I never stayed away from the pub. Basically, I was always there. And also I've had no interest in having children, so the life that I was leading in my early 20s was very easy to carry on into my mid 30s. And my dad died from alcohol when I was 30, and so I think then I knew I needed to give up. I am my father's daughter. I always joke that I inherited his drinking habits and his boobs. And I knew then that I had that potential to be like my dad, to suddenly fall into not being able to stop really. But despite my panic at 30, I really didn't do anything until I was 38, when actually I was beginning to scare myself, and I'd ended up in a job that I really wasn't enjoying. And my job is a really big part of my identity. I got elected to Islington Council when I was 23. I've stood for Parliament twice. I've always been in jobs about helping people with different charities and so on. So to end up in a job where really no one cared if I turned up, which sounds amazing, right? But is absolutely soul destroying.
Yeah.
My drinking went up, and what was what was an okay drinking habit, I wouldn't say it was a good drinking habit, an okay and manageable drinking habit, suddenly tipped over into something that really worried me. And I got to the point where I wasn't able to stop drinking once I'd started. Right. And that's quite common actually among people who join Club Soda, which is suddenly something switches. And I didn't drink every day. I actually wasn't any good at drinking on a hangover. But what happened was when I started, I just couldn't stop, and it became like it was some sort of extreme sport. And I was beginning to get myself into a right pickle and scare myself. And I I think there was a day when I just sort of knew I had to do something, that this was only going to get worse. And all those excuses that you put in place, like, oh, there's an event coming up, or it's nearly my birthday, or I'll do it after Christmas. Suddenly those became very insignificant. And I realized that there's no better day than today, really. Although I actually did set a date 2 weeks in advance because I went on a workshop. But that was it for me. And I'm still surprised, actually, because I'm not very good at willpower. You know, stick a piece of cake in front of me right now and I'll be like bashing my face into it. I don't care that you're recording a podcast. I would not be able to resist, right? So I'm still amazed that I managed to do it. But I think I accidentally put in place quite a few good behavior change techniques in order to make that happen.
And were your friends and loved ones aware of how worried you were? Were they noticing differences in you?
Certainly my friends were worried about my drinking, although like most people, they don't really know how to approach it. But when the day I decided I was going to change my drinking, I'd set a date for 2 weeks in the future, the look of relief, I actually went to a party with some friends and told them, the look of relief on their face when I told them, told me an awful lot. And you know, they have been nothing but supportive ever since. I'm lucky that there's lots more that binds me to my friendships than drinking.
Well, then you know it's a true friendship.
Yeah. So that was amazing, actually. But yes, there was a relief, and people didn't talk about it too much because they know I didn't want to talk about it. But they were all there being secretly supportive.
So you got to that point, and was there that day that you woke up and felt today is the day? And I think that could be relative to a lot of things, couldn't it? I know just a minute ago we were talking about how we were both feeling this morning, and you know, the importance of kind of exercise and stuff, but can you pinpoint anything that made you go, today is the day?
I got a tax return, so I had a bit of money, and I thought I should do something with this money that's going to be useful. So
and not
tax
drink
rebate, and so I booked on a course. So that was a few weeks away, and so that gave me, you know, my learning style is in person. You know, I had so many self-help books around changing drinking that all had wine stains on them. You know, I wasn't going to read them all, right? And so I just thought, if I put aside a day where I focused totally on this, I have to say, how bad the course was and how unethical the course was made me so angry. And anger's a great motivator for me. I often think that that's why I didn't drink, not because of the content, but because I came away fuming.
That you paid for this course that just really wasn't delivering.
Well, it was also unethical. You know, people may not know, but if you're dependent on alcohol, physically dependent on alcohol, it's the most dangerous drug to detox from. It's more dangerous than heroin. You can die if you suddenly withdraw alcohol. And there were people in the room who were physically dependent, and I may well have been, who knows, but there were people in the room who were physically dependent. It was really obvious, and they sent them away and told them not to drink again without any support or medical advice. And so that, you know, as somebody who's from the public sector and knew some of these things, I was really angry, and it's partly what motivated me to set up Club Soda. But so anger's a great. I often think I stubbornly am not drinking because I wanted to show them that you know, that how angry I was. But
that worked for you, so
yeah. But actually, the putting aside a day for me, knowing that was the day, I didn't want to turn up hungover. I wanted to. So I remember the last time I had a drink and with a friend, and then I wanted to make sure I was clear-headed for that day. Just that act of putting that space and time in and doing nothing else for the whole day was a really important sort of line in the sand, rather than just waking up with a hangover and doing it, which is probably one of the worst times to do it, because it's great when you feel so bad you want to make that change, and then when you start to feel better again you forget about that. So actually having planned it and thought it through, and actually found somebody else who was going to give up with me at the same time, and a few of those things ended up accidentally being really good behavior change techniques. Telling friends, keeping yourself accountable.
So you had like a mindful drinking buddy, and you didn't kind of then binge drink in those 2 weeks when you knew you had that date coming up? You didn't go crazy in those 2 weeks?
Well, I think I went crazy for about 8 years after my dad died, actually. It is a bit like, you know, when you're going on a diet and you think you're going to have to eat all the cake in the world because someone's going to take all of the cake away. And basically, that's what I did for 8 years. So that's 8 years of knowing I had to change my drinking and therefore feeling that, you know, I should make the most of it now.
Yeah.
And, you know, the one thing I do know is, of course, in life, we always put off these things for the future us. And I was very aware that the future me was going to keep having a harder and harder time if I didn't do something now. So there always has to be a point where you go, okay, now has to be it. And so that was it for me. And for me, I began to feel really good very quickly. To somebody who's always been, you know, I'm an extrovert. I enjoy all the micro interactions I have with people on a daily basis. I felt I was a people person. Over the few years before I gave up, I began to think I wasn't a people person anymore, because actually holding a conversation when you're tired and hungover, and even if you're not, you know, most people think of the hangover as the really bad day after an evening skinful, but actually hangovers can last 3 or 4 days. You know, you'll feel depressed maybe 3 days later. That tiredness doesn't really shift for a long time, and then if you're continually topping it up. So I began to think I wasn't a people person. Everything that I knew about myself was wrong. But of course, it wasn't that. It was that, you know, alcohol was just making me a duller version of myself. And so very quickly, my energy picked up. Those micro interactions came in and they energized me hugely. The puffiness in my face went very quickly. So that happens for some people. It was very much the case for me.
Yeah.
And so I made it it became an exciting journey. There wasn't alcohol-free drinks really available then, but I bought a soda stream and went a bit mental with finding all sorts of weird concoctions. And got into herbal teas, and, you know, the person I gave up with, I was in a new relationship with. And so automatically that creates a new environment, which is exciting, and you're discovering things together. So all in all, it became, a little bit of an exciting experiment and change. And I still describe it now as like 1,000 little epiphanies, because you also begin to feel emotions that you may not have felt for a long time. You know, alcohol's Britain's #1 coping mechanism for anything. We're taught from a really young age, oh, if you're sad, have a drink. If you're happy, oh, have more to drink. If you're you know, commiserating, have a drink. And so I realized that I hadn't really dealt with lots of feelings before. And I meant, you know, dealing with those was, you know, sometimes really difficult, but also really life-changing.
I do notice as well, like I'm a little bit like you. So anyone who knows me here in this podcast will know I was a ladette. So I would drink pint for pint with the lads. I'd probably have a 3-litre box of Country Manor before I went out. And then I'd say in the last sort of 10 years, even my children will comment, if we're having a house party, the kids are commenting to their parents, you're too drunk, you need to stop drinking. And I never did that as a child. I would never dream of walking up to my mum and dad.
No, I think we're a particularly boozy generation. I think younger people are drinking less, but they probably more than any other generation, they've seen their parents pissed a lot, been put to bed by parents that smell of wine, and are far more critical of it than
definitely.
We were.
And you know, I do see that with, you know, with my kids and friends' children as well. And actually it's quite comical, because sometimes people will be like, so do you drink in the evening? Because I don't drink wine. I stopped drinking wine before I had my daughter, so 11 years ago. I just couldn't handle the hangovers of wine. Occasionally I might have a glass of red. But I hadn't touched wine for over 10 years. And they'd be like, why don't you have a glass of wine when you get home from work? I'm like, no. What about like the weekend? Would you sit and have a drink? No, not really. Oh, come on, you must have one with your Sunday dinner. I'm like, no, I'm quite happy to have my Sunday dinner with that. And actually, if they're listening, they'll be giggling, they'll understand. But they really just couldn't get it. And I was like, I'm not the best drinker. So when I drink, I go big. But I might do that once every 3 months. But it's just not part of my daily repertoire at all. And I'm hoping that my children see that, that it's not something you do every day.
Yeah, and it's and actually that having a glass of wine as you when you come back from work, you're almost doing it automatically without even thinking about it, and that's where all of the drinks rack up. And in Club Soda, we don't tell anybody not to drink. It's really up to people to make their own decisions. It's never been something that I've wanted to do, which is to tell people what to do. However much I'd like to save people some of the pain that I went through, the truth is it has to be your journey. You have to work it out for yourself, and certainly I went through lots of occasions where I tried to cut down and it failed, in order to know that really the only option for me was to go alcohol free for now. That was all it ever was for now. And so one thing we talk about, and this is really important if you're in business, which is, instead of focusing on what you're taking away, oh my God, I'm going to have to give up drinking, focus on the life you want to lead and where alcohol fits into that. And it may be that you've got a business and you want to be more productive. If you think about it, if you were offered a pill that made you more energetic, helped you lose weight, made you more productive, helped you look younger, all of those sorts of things, you'll probably pay quite a lot for it. But if you don't drink very much, if you cut down your drinking, you will achieve all of that and you would save money, right? So I couldn't do the job I do now on this much money if I wasn't still alcohol free.
And that's a great analogy. I mean, if there really was a pill out there, people would be scrambling all over themselves to buy it. And also, I just want to say, I don't want to judge anyone who has a glass of wine every day after work, but
if you're happy with that and where you are with that, that's fine. If you're unhappy with your drinking or you're a little bit worried about it, and you don't need anyone else to tell you that. You'll be a bit worried about an argument you had at the weekend, or the fact that you're feeling a bit tired. And what's been really funny for us this year is in the 5 years that Club Soda's been going, there's been a real, first of all, it was our age group talking about changing their drinking, and people like Zoe Ball being more open about it. And then younger women started to come on Instagram and talk about changing drinking. This last year I describe as the year of the boys. The boys have come into the frame, and young men have been talking about changing drinking most of all. And nearly all the blogs we get offered are from young men talk about giving up drinking in order to start a business. They see it as productivity 101 is not drinking.
Amazing.
And so the fact that they reframe it as being productive, hitting life hard, whereas alcohol isn't about hitting life hard anymore. It's about, setting up your business, having a side hustle, being able to socialize properly is all possible by not drinking, is really interesting. And there's a lot to learn from that. So it may be that the life you see for yourself is about having more in it, and therefore alcohol taking more of a backseat.
Yeah, and I love that. It's kind of, don't focus on what you're stopping and not doing. Focus on what, you touched on earlier. You saw the physical and felt the mental rewards quite quickly, actually, and that has continued to grow. So definitely look at the positives.
Yeah,
so
and the thing I do now, I could do if I was still drinking. So not drinking, after so many years of drinking, is every now and again I remind myself that none of this would be possible if I was still drinking. No. I would still be, opting for wine on the sofa instead of, going out outdoor swimming or doing a bit of running or just reading a book or spending some really nice time with friends, even if that's on Zoom.
Yeah, and I think it's like you say, all of those are examples of productively filling your time versus sat on your own, maybe thinking things you don't want to think, or not thinking at all and having a drink. So take me through then when you founded Club Soda and this mindful drinking movement.
I actually got a small business loan and went on a small business program to look at how we may create a business from an idea. So not really knowing what the final product would be, looking at exploring the idea and how we would design a service around people's needs. And so that was a really interesting time for me. And we've continued to do business accelerator programs. We're on one at the moment to look at how we continue to develop our offer. I always used to say I wanted to be like a proper grown-up business where, I provided a service and took money from people, and hooray, one day it would all pay off. But I seem to be incapable of not wanting to change the bigger picture. So, really early on, I got a small grant to do some research in Hackney around how to change behaviour of pubs and bars towards their non-drinking customers. That was just before the wave of alcohol-free drinks started to hit the market. And so we began to build an expertise in understanding what was going on in venues, which led to us developing clubsodaguide.com, which was a guide to low and no alcohol drinks and where to buy them, which is in itself a behaviour change tool and a navigation tool for consumers. And also we decided after that piece of research to do the festival in 2017, where we managed to just about scrape together 20 brands into Bermondsey Square, where of course now we sell out immediately of 60 stands, and have people queuing to do talks and stuff. And then we've just done one online this year as well. So and that came from the fact that people's behaviour around alcohol-free drinks is very different. I mean, they're new drinks, they're not soft drinks, they're not hard drinks, so they're something in between, designed for adults, and people want to be able to taste them and explore them. It's why it's a free festival, because we didn't want to put any barrier up to people coming in and trying drinks.
And I just from my personal experience, albeit I was kind of working at one of the stands, the biggest barrier to a lot of this has been perception and taste. Way back when when we were doing innovation, a lot of what was produced didn't taste very good. There was a lack of understanding. It was ridiculed, and probably still is. And actually what I loved about the festival was there was a real sense, there was loads of tables, people just sitting and having proper conversations, rather than, business was being done, of course, but it wasn't all about wheeling and dealing and give me a bottle of vodka and I'll give you a case of this instead. And it really opened my mind actually to the choice that's now available.
Yeah, and we're the growth market in the world. It's just maybe because we started from a really low base, but most of the innovations happening here in the UK and Australia is catching up as well. But it's really exciting, and that isn't going away. And in fact, if anything, COVID's accelerated people's interest in low and no, because people's views around health have suddenly, health was already on a upward trajectory, and now it's just been supercharged. So people are looking for alternatives, and they're looking for adult drinks that are less sugary, that go with food, that help them have the same experience, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's mainly small innovators in this space that are filling that gap, which I think is really exciting.
And it is, and I think because their ability to be really agile and move quickly, versus, there are some great businesses out there, but by the very nature of their scale, everything takes so long. It can take 2 years to get it through. Whereas, working with the Upflow guys, it was, we've got this beer, they've brewed a fantastic liquid, I'll call it. And I actually remember, before I said I would get involved, I asked him to send me some. I thought, I can't work with something I don't believe in. So he sent me a couple of cans over, and I did a blind taste test with the family. I had weekends, had a barbecue, and not one single person, primarily my brother and my husband and whatever, could fathom that it was alcohol free. And then when I told them afterwards, they literally didn't believe me. And that was enough for me. I was like, right, we've hit this here. Great brand, great taste. And I genuinely, I know this is going to sound really weird, but at the time, occasionally if I had a drink, I would smoke. I generally felt like I wanted to have a cigarette with this brand.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm in. This is just amazing. But we need those small, agile companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big companies are spending a lot of time looking at them now and thinking about where that market's going to go. But for me, it's really interesting because all of those small companies really started from a place of their own need. And, Upflow came from, he wanted a beer that he could carry on drinking while he did silly things like flying an airplane around the world, So, it's about enjoying life on the terms that you want it. And those drinks, as I keep saying, an alcohol-free beer is the healthiest thing next to water you can drink in a pub, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're on a sugar-free diet, job done. But there's a whole education piece to do here. And I'm excited about the fact that actually brands pulling together can supercharge this space a lot more and achieve some of the things that are needed around education of consumer, education of venues. I was one of my best received tweets during the whole of lockdown was when Rishi Sunak announced, you know, the Eat Out to Help Out, and
Yeah.
everyone was going, Rishi Sunak still goes to the pub even though he doesn't drink, and I just tweeted, you know, it's been a long time since the pub's only been about getting drunk. You know, back in the 80s you couldn't get a meal in a pub, but now it's all about the meal, the experience.
Yeah.
You know, pubs have got an amazing range of alcohol-free drinks, and that went mental. You know, everyone was sharing that because, you know, this assumption that our social spaces have only got one type of thing in it is really mad, because we want these businesses to survive. It's all about spending money. It's all about having a shared experience. Where did the rule come from that you can only go to the pub if you're having alcohol? In fact, that's actually a very dangerous place for that to end up being. And there was a point when it was easier to get a vegetarian meal than an alcohol-free drink in a pub.
Or your choice was like one or two things, and let's be honest, frankly, really wasn't very nice.
And it's just another dietary preference if you strip it back. It's not an unusual behaviour, which is how some bar staff used to treat it. What do you mean you don't want lemonade? You know, so hospitality,
but
guys.
Still, even now, if you go out and you say, actually, I'm just going to have a soft drink, I'm going to have the, you know, it's still an issue for some people. And even if they say it jokingly, and I wonder if I reflect now, how many times have I picked up an alcoholic drink just because I've had the Mickey taken out of me, versus just stuck to my guns and went, I don't actually want one.
We need to learn from young people, because actually they accept friends for their differences. So, you know, they will find a venue that has a good vegetarian meal so that they can all go out and enjoy it together. Us in our mid to late 40s are going, right, you're coming for alcohol or nothing. Wow, that's friendly, isn't it? You know, I think we need to learn a little bit about diversity and consent, and just accepting our friends for who they are, and making sure that everyone feels like they've got something. And in fact, that's what's happening. I see that with younger people, and that's what friendship's about.
Definitely. And I think that
after 5 pints.
Yeah, but equally, we didn't have social and Facebook when we were, you know, drinking bottles of 2020 and Thunderbirds in the village hall. So I think that exposure for young people as well.
Classy. I'm from Somerset. It was cider, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it didn't take me long to delete the drunk pictures of me on Facebook, because there was only a few years of drunken pictures. But yes, a whole lifetime of drunken pictures would have been a nightmare.
And I know we can all do this, and it's, you know, when you're trying to guide your younger children through what you know is going to come up, actually, I think our age maybe put too much fear and pressure into what they might do based on what you did. And actually, they're growing up very, very differently now. So I think 1 in 3 students now don't drink or take drugs. And that was 1 in 5 when I was in FMCG sort of 10, 15 years ago. So I think they're doing it, and I still think those conversations need to be had.
And you're right, there are other pressures in the place, like, you know, Instagram and social media, and some of the pressure from that. You know, I thought the next generation of young women would grow up without some of the self-esteem issues around body image that we had, and actually it's worse. But they're far more acutely aware of their mental health as a result. And they definitely know how alcohol and drugs impacts on their mental health, and therefore they're very protective of it. So, you know.
And also for guys as well. I mean, it was on the news again this morning, just saying about the number of guys that now, you know, are way more body conscious than they were, and don't want to be seen as this guy sat in a pub with a huge, you know, big beer belly. And
no, you've got pictures of your abs on social instead.
I've been trying for 6 months. It's not working. Although I've got a face back, so I'm 43. I've had 2 kids. I just need to give up the ghost, but I'm getting there slowly. So tell me a little bit more about the future for Club Soda and your ambitions of where you want to take it.
So I'm not sure if you've ever been on business courses, but they tell you to do one thing and do it well. And of course, we've done like loads of things, and we spread ourselves far too thin. So we've been using the opportunity of lockdown and the change in the market at the minute to rethink our priorities. And we run really good courses on changing drinking. We got funding from the Wellcome Trust last year to really hard bake all the behaviour change knowledge that we have into those. And we want to develop those and continue to grow those as an asset for businesses and for the government and for everyone else.
Amazing.
It's interesting that alcohol actually in health is really like the poor relation. It actually affects every single part of health and therefore doesn't fit in anything. And therefore there isn't any investment around it. There's no, because it doesn't fit into a box neatly. There's no health economics around it. It doesn't fit into the NHS. It's in preventative health, but there's no money left there. So there's all sorts of issues around that. And therefore people are very badly served in that, in change the drinking. The government spends more time discussing units, which of course are mostly irrelevant, than they do in working out that if you gave people more help to change their drinking, practical help, they might actually be able to change their drinking. But then government should never do that help themselves, because they write really stupid things like, why not alternate alcoholic drinks with non-alcoholic drinks? Or, I mean, because once you've started drinking, that's really easy.
Let's do a double vodka, then a shot of water.
Or the one that I really liked is, why not just drink half the bottle of wine and leave the other half for another day? What? If you're having an issue with drinking, leave.
Did we have a 3-word slogan?
Leaving half a bottle of wine is impossible, right? I mean, I still look at people who leave half a glass of wine in a restaurant and leave and think, how did they do that? I don't know.
But actually, do you know what, you say that and now I'm feeling guilty, because I just went away for the weekend with 2 girlfriends and we, bless them, one of them was just been so busy and on both nights left half a glass of something. And we were like, you left half a glass, you know, blah, blah, blah.
You're a horrible person.
I'm a horrible friend.
Being a friend.
I think I'm just going to go and, I was going to say go and buy them a bottle of wine. Maybe not.
Do not, yes. But you see how easy, I mean, all of that's culturally hardwired, taking a mick out of someone for leaving a drink. And I used to do all of that as well. I feel very ashamed of myself. You know, I don't trust anyone who doesn't drink. Oh God, aren't we just dickheads?
Are you like one of those ex-smokers though, that when you went on that journey and you were feeling quite angry and hopefully confident and smug and the just for now has turned into me, do you find yourself, I know you say you don't tell people what to do, but are you quite forward?
I am, because it's also my job, and so if people ask me what I do, there's no hiding it. I could just hide in the shadows and become someone who just doesn't drink and leave it at that. But people tend to ask me questions, and then people will say silly things to me like, "Yeah, but my daughter's getting married in the summer, and it wouldn't be a wedding without champagne." I thought, well, actually, it would. Champagne is the least important part of a wedding. The fact that your daughter's getting married is the most important part of the wedding. If all you're looking forward to is the champagne, you focus on the wrong thing, mate. You know. And
actually, you mentioned
fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
But that's it. You think that's my daughter getting married, and I remember it was you. I'll blame you. We were talking about Prosecco and champagne, and I said, look, I don't drink wine, I don't drink beer anymore. And he said, here, try this. And it was a bottle of alcohol-free Prosecco, and I was a little bit like, I'm totally open-minded. And I'll be honest, it sat in my fridge for a while. And then one weekend I had a friend over and I'd already opened a bottle of Prosecco, and then I opened yours by mistake. I didn't know that it was the alcohol-free one. And it wasn't until maybe 2 glasses in, I looked at the bottle and I thought, oh, hold on a minute, I'm sure this is the one Laura gave me. And honestly, changed my mind completely. I just assumed it would taste awful.
No, there's lots happening in this space. Beers, obviously, they're the hero category, because you know we knew there were alcohol-free beers before, and now they just taste amazing. I mean, I never even used to drink beer when I was drinking alcohol, but you know, I was away at the weekend and had Adnams Ghost Ship with my fish and chips. Nice. It was great. So you know, you do need to try them, and no one's saying you need to give up, but you may find that you can replace some of those evening end of work day drinks, especially if we're working at home now, to be able to mark that end of work day for the evening. But you could just swap out some of those alcoholic drinks for some alcohol free, and that would reduce the amount you drink in a week and would make enough of a difference for you, and that's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's a mindful drinker, mostly to a degree. You know, we don't all drink all the time. Sometimes we drive, and Sometimes we've got the gym tomorrow. And so there are some new drinks out there for you. And so, explore. The biggest purchasers of alcohol-free beer are the people who also buy alcoholic beer. So somebody's caught on, and maybe
exactly. Yeah, and I think, look, if anyone's listening, and you don't necessarily have to be in London, but certainly do check out the Mindful Drinking Festival, because it really opened up my eyes. The scope of brands, products, tastes, and new innovations was just incredible.
We were planning to do 3 this year. As you can imagine, that hasn't happened. We were going to do Manchester and Glasgow again. But but that will have to wait for another day, I think. Who knows what will come along. But that doesn't mean you can't try it. At a place like Wise Bartender, where you can order mixed boxes of beers, try them out. Every beer is different. Clubsodaguide.com's got a full list of drinks that you can have a look through. The supermarkets are fantastic now. They've all got a wide range of alcohol drinks. So have a little look. And just because you don't like one doesn't mean you don't like all of them, right?
People are like that. Oh, well, I tried an alcoholic-free beer and it was shit, and that's it. I'm not doing it again.
There are some that I don't like, and there are some that I love. I'm a big kombucha fan, because to me it's the nearest to a scrumpy cider that I had. But for some people, it's there are some that are nearer a champagne and gives you those acidic notes. But I don't like every kombucha, right? You know. There's some terrible kombuchas out there, but there are also some stunning ones. So, it's about finding your favourite tipple.
Definitely. And like you say, I did a mixed order box when I was looking into, to be fair, when I was looking in further into the category, both recently and also when I was doing low no years ago for a brewery. And it's really easy to do. Anyway, you just get them all in, get them all chilled down, and just have a really nice taste experience. And then you go, right, not touching those, but actually these can be part of your weekly repertoire.
Yeah, and funny enough, when we were judging the Low and No Awards this year, normally you'd do those in a bar and you'd have them served to you blind, and instead they all arrived here, 140 different drinks, all wrapped in plastic bags, so we couldn't see what they were. And it's the first time I'd actually gone through the full range of beer styles, because beer still isn't, is a taste I'm acquiring, and I really began through that to be able to learn what my beer preferences were. So basically beers that taste like chocolate or go with chocolate.
Is there anyone?
Surprise!
Chocolate, cake, beer, mix it up together. Is there one actually that would be the equivalent to a Guinness?
Yes, so I highly recommend either the Big Drop Stout,
right,
or Drop Bear's Bonfire Stout, which is slightly smoky, and so actually for this time of year is beautiful.
Okay, that one's for you, Nick, my husband. Sorry.
So try both of those, and you can get both of those on Wise Bartender as well. And if you like a darker beer, then the brown ale from Big Drop is also really good. So
awesome.
And I suspect there will be far more stouts coming out onto the market this year, because it's an alcohol-free beer. They tend to be doing really well, and I think you will see some stuff appearing.
Great, I look forward to it. So if you could give the listeners a couple of bits of advice, be it they need or want to stop, or they just want to change their drinking habits, where do they start, and what are the top 3 benefits from changing those behaviours?
So first of all, you could pick up our book, which is How to Be a Mindful Drinker, which we brought out at the end of last year. And that will take you through a process of not, here's how you stop drinking and here's what you do on day 1, but instead says, what's your drinking be like? What are you unhappy with? What did you enjoy? Because to say that there aren't enjoyable things about drinking would be wrong.
Yeah.
And what is it that and what bits of your drinking are you most worried about? And then what's the life you want to lead? What do you want to be able to achieve, and where would alcohol fit into that? And ask yourself some key questions, which is, who do you drink with? Where do you drink? What do you drink? And begin to think through those patterns. And you might be able to go, well, you know what? I've been drinking every day after work. I'd quite like to knock that on the head. Or every time I go out with Mike, I get totally legless. Maybe I need to think.
Let's shoot Mike.
To deal with that, yeah. And then that will take on a journey to decide whether you want to take a break, or look at some moderation rules. I can tell you now that if you try and moderate just by going, I'm going to moderate, that doesn't happen. You have to have some little rules around it based on what you know about yourself, and start to test what works for you. Personally, I would always say, you know, I'm a big advocate for alcohol-free as a lifestyle because I've seen what it can do and it's amazing. But if you take at least a month off, but actually preferably 3, even if you're looking to moderate, you would have begun to feel the benefits of not drinking. It can take 3 months for some of the withdrawal effects to disappear. And
Really?
even if you don't drink very much, you will notice that you want to shove Haribo into your face every 5 minutes because your sugar cravings will go up, and you might feel a bit tired. And because behaviour change is difficult, it makes you a bit grumpy anyway. Any change does. So 3 months, I believe, is a charm. But even if you do a month, you would have also have come across all of the things that you normally do around drinking and be able to assess each of them and go, okay,
how did it feel? And
how did it feel to not drink? And also, because if you're looking to moderate, people often want to moderate because they don't believe they could go out on Friday and Saturday and not drink. But of course, until you learn to go out on Friday and Saturday and not drink, you don't get to make those choices. You don't get to have the control over it.
Yeah, because I guess my strategy would just be avoid going out, and therefore I don't have that temptation. I don't have to then drink, but then you just get more down because you're missing the social time and everything else.
I go to the pub I actually went to the pub very quickly after changing my drinking, and I never stopped going to the pub as much as I did. For me, that being social is really important, and every time I came out of the pub without drinking, I felt like I had a superpower. It was amazing. So, you know, if you can get through Christmas without drinking, you do feel like you have gained some amazing skill.
You still gained 20 pounds with the food intake.
Yeah.
At least you remember it.
You know, all of that sort of stuff. So do consider taking a break, whatever your goal is.
Yeah.
That will teach you lots of things. And don't do it alone. We get pissed together. So why should we get sober alone? And so we've got online communities of people moderating or going alcohol free that you can join. We've got courses with the private groups and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, do feel like you can reach out. It's not like this isn't like AA. There aren't loads of meetings. You don't have to suddenly confess anything. Actually, this is a positive lifestyle choice. There's lots of people who frame it in that way and are supporting each other to do that.
That's amazing. Well, listen, thank you massively for your time, Laura. It's fabulous to see you again. And I hope the listeners, if they can get down to the Mindful Drinking Festival, please do.
Whenever there is one.
Yeah, we can get you up north and get to the Midlands. I
think it will be this January somehow, but as soon as we can, we will. And there will be an online one in January. So.
Oh, that'll be amazing. And so if anyone's ever thought about it, and, you know, my experience has been both engaged in it, but also both as in work format, and I've fundamentally changed my whole thinking around it. And there is some bloody amazing flavour and taste out there now, not just in beer, but in cider and champagne. So thank you for co-founding Club Soda. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience with it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the last half an hour. So thank you so much, Laura. Have an amazing day, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. So that's it. You've made it. The show's over. Thank you for being with us. I hope you've been able to take something away, maybe solve a problem, or just know you're not alone. Here's hoping it made you smile with a few laughs along the way. Please feel free to find me on all social media channels, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search the Rolling Morale Podcast. Have an awesome day, and see you next time.